Hey, Xcapaders. Welcome to the Xcapade to Xpansion podcast, where we hope to help challenge the mind, heal the body, and elevate the spirit on your journey of self-discovery. Are you ready to expand?
Welcome back to another episode, y'all. Today's topic is about to be fire. Our episode today is relationship DOA, dead on arrival.
Dead on arrival.
Y'all might not like what we about to say today. Y'all may rough feathers may get a little ruffled. My name is Tisa. Sorry.
I'm Jean-Voana.
I'm Jessica Devine.
And I am Angela.
I want to ask y'all something. It's about to get personal. We're going to start off with a little bit of personal. Have y'all had, or tell me a time, if you have, of a relationship that was difficult to let go of? Have y'all been there?
Yes. Multiple occasions, actually.
And why was it difficult? If you could think of like the biggest reason, right? I'm sure there were multiple reasons why. But like, in hindsight, what was the biggest reason why it was difficult for you to let go?
I think for me, I wanted it to work. Like I borderline needed it to work, right? With getting out of, and interestingly enough, this was not my previous marriage that it was hard to let go of, you know, even though that too had its, a period of kind of releasing and letting go of. But the relationship that really sticks out to me was a relationship where we really weren't even in a relationship at all. Like we were just the benefits, right?
Situationship.
It was a situationship, and that felt good. That felt good to me. It was, of course, after I had gotten out of my first marriage and I was attempting to find or discover like who would be the next, right? Not necessarily looking for it per se, but understanding I had 3 daughters. I didn't want, Joe and Rico and all these different people to ever be around them or come in contact with them. But it was tough. And it was, I believe we had a very interesting connection, if you will. And part of that was sex.
I was just about to ask.
Part of that was sex. So, yeah.
I can say for me, judgment, especially when it comes down to not just romantic relationships, but friendships and family relationships. You're going to say, well, how would other people outside of me think about me letting go of this relationship? Think about it even if you have to distance yourself from a family member. What are people going to say? Are they going to look at you as the bad person? Oh, you're not talking to your mother. Oh, you're not dealing with this person. Something's wrong with you because you're supposed to try to make it work. Even in marriage or even with your children, it's an obligation that you kind of have that society puts on us to make these connections work, even if they're toxic. So I would say judgment is a big one.
Yeah. For me, I would say it's the first. Sometimes when it's your first, it's hard to let go, right? Because for me, in college, I remember a relationship. He was like my first love, right? And my first love is kind of like your emotions are everywhere. Like, is this what love is? Tall, dark, handsome, the list, right? But, even in family as well, when you are the first to do something, right? When you're the first to graduate, when you're the first child, right? Your first is so much more of an obligation to where you don't want to let people down. And I think, when you're talking about why is it so hard sometimes to let go, it's because number one, who's going to take my place, right? Yeah. In relationships, who's going to take my place?
Right.
And
I done worked hard for this to make this
who's
work.
Going to take my place, right? And so the responsibility sometimes becomes so heavy, but sometimes you get used to that responsibility.
Yep.
Yeah. The weight of it, and you're used to carrying it, right? And it becomes familiar, and it becomes normal.
And now you've dedicated so much time to it.
Right.
You feel like if I let it go, it's going to be a waste.
Right.
You know, let's be honest.
Or who's going to reap the benefits of the work
Exactly.
that I put in.
Come on, let's talk about those relationships,
A lot
right?
of women,
Right.
a lot of women will feel like, well, I built him up to be the man he
Yep.
is,
That's it.
and nobody else is going to get
Right.
this, you know,
Right.
the benefits
Right.
of my investment. And I'm like, well, he's terrible to you, though. So, like,
Right.
you know, you're not even reaping the benefits.
Right.
Yeah.
Real.
We waiting on you. What you got going on over there?
Mine, ironically, wouldn't be my marriage either. As I'm sitting here thinking about it, and maybe it was because I left. Maybe it was easier to let go because I was the one that ended it.
Yep.
My most difficult relationship to let go of would be my first one where I was broken up with. And it was the rejection that I wanted to soothe so bad.
Yeah.
Like in hindsight, I didn't actually want to be like once first of all, it was definitely an off and on relationship for a very long time, for like 3.5 years. But I realized in hindsight that I actually didn't want to be with him. Like looking at the relationship as a whole, it was just that rejection that I was trying to soothe by chasing him for years, trying to get him to choose me again.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
So as we're talking about this DOA though, this
Yes.
relationship DOA. So let's be for real. So Miss Jessica, you came up with that title. What were you thinking about?
So when I said relationship dead on arrival, I wanted to really hit on the fact that when we're not whole within ourselves, a lot of our relationships, whether they're romantic, friendships, associations, whatever, they're doomed to fail. They're doomed to fail because we haven't done the inner work that we need to do to establish healthy boundaries and healthy relationships.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, you meet people and it's already dead. And it's like you're trying to build up something and it's not working out. And you're wondering, okay, well, why is it never working out for me in these relationships, whether it's with your parents, friends, whoever. And it's because there's inner work to do.
Yeah.
You can't grow something from corrupt soil.
That's it.
You know what? When you said the relationship DOA, and I was kind of figuring you were going that direction, I was actually reminded of, and yes, y'all, I read the Bible. Yes, I believe in God. There's a parable that talks about putting new wine in old skin, right? Yeah. And the whole purpose behind that parable is to let you know that you can't take something new and place it in something old, right? Because if you put that new in that old skin, the old skin, and like we were talking about the jeans earlier, it's already been stretched. It's already been stretched, right?
To its limits.
And if you put new wine in there, because it has a fermenting process, it has to go over, it'll cause that old skin to bust. And both of those items, the old bottle as well as the new wine, it's gone. It's irrelevant. It's obsolete. So we have to remember when going into wanting these new relationships, you can't take your old self or a new relationship to put in your old habits and your old ways. You have to now literally remake yourself, or I won't say discover, create a new you. Right? You have to literally be able to create a new you so that you can accept all that this new relationship has to offer.
Yeah.
You know what? So I like that because this young lady, I think I've seen a video of her, and she was really struggling with the fact that a lot of her, you remember Gwen. Was it Gwen or was it the other lady? It was the other lady. So she was saying she was struggling with the loss of friendships as she was growing. And when you talked about you can't put new wine in old wineskins, a lot of times these things are breaking and not working anymore because you're becoming that new wine. And that old wineskin, that old environment, that old job, those old friendships, they're not able to handle the capacity and the potential and the weight of this new wine. So you'll find yourself being put in new situations. So, and when you try to force it into those old situations, it ends up cracking.
It doesn't work.
So that made me think about that.
I like that.
When I thought about DOA, and I was like, how morbid is that? You see what I'm saying? Like when we come into these situations, when we're saying dead on arrival, like, dang, you're lifeless. You know, and that's part of even trauma bonding as well, right? And when you're coming into a relationship where you have not done your work in the interim, and you have not reintroduced yourself to yourself.
That's
right. And so the life that was in you was taken out of you because of certain experiences that kind of like messed you up psychologically, right? Messed you up spiritually, physical, where you've lost your identity and you have not taken the time to really reintroduce yourself to yourself and look yourself in the mirror and say, girl, it's time to do the work again.
Right.
And so when we talk about dead on arrival, it gave me kind of like a morbid feeling, like lifeless, right? Lifeless. And, you know, what are you giving to the other person? What can you give?
I wrote something a while ago. So I'm on Instagram, check it out.
Shameless plug.
But to that point, I wrote something a while ago last year on Instagram that said, love is a life-bearing, fruit-bearing thing. That's what love is, right? Love births things.
Yeah.
Love expands things. Love grows things, right?
Yeah.
And it's often, like we just said, the roots, the soil that love is grounded in that causes it not to grow and bear fruit. Yeah. And it makes me think of a few of my relationships. And how much, to your point, it was a lot of trauma bonding that was occurring, right? I'm not gonna say love didn't exist, right? What we knew love to be, right, is what it was, which was, you know, in hindsight, not the kind of love that I would accept or give now. But to your point, it was a whole bunch of trauma bonding going on in the midst of those relationships. And I remember, like, when my first serious relationship was my husband. I got married very early. Why do that? I wasn't even 20 when I got married.
Read some literature on the matter.
I remember everybody being like, you don't, and because I grew up with so much trauma and I basically raised myself, when I was a teenager, couldn't nobody tell me nothing. They couldn't. Well, the people that were supposed to be supervising me, right? Like, I have a relationship with my dad, so my dad was the main one, like, you know, he's not a good man for you. Y'all gonna get divorced, blah, blah, blah. I was like, you can't tell me anything, sir. I don't even respect what you say. Like, I'm not about to listen to you. But got married super young. And of course, the relationship ended we only were married for like a year and a half. And I went not taking time out to reflect. First of all, I didn't even know what reflecting was then. But it's crazy to think how, when that relationship ended, how soon I entered into another relationship. Like, there was no concept of like, but even though I was young then, you know how long it took me? How many years? I was in my 30s before I understood the power of reflection.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That is crazy. I was in my 30s before I took time out, right? And talk about the hardest relationship that I had to let go of when I was left. He left when I was pregnant. And it was at that point that I was like, talked about our last podcast episode, something got to change. And I was 30 when I started to reflect before I moved into another relationship.
And I think what you just said plays a big part on this, you know, whole relationship DOA. A part of that is giving enough opportunity to be able to heal prior to entering into a new relationship. And a lot of us, we want to fill that void. You know, I keep saying we're looking outside of ourselves to fill a void that is within ourselves, right? So we want to go ahead and feel like it's the next person's responsibility to make us happy. This did not work in this relationship, so let me see if I can find it somewhere else. I think that's a big challenge, a big problem.
I remember saying that, like thinking that, like, you're supposed to make me happy. It's wild.
Now you're like, really?
And I think it's something that we naturally kind of have to learn, where we have to go through the motions, and everybody has their level and their journey of learning it. But a lot of us have to kind of learn going through relationships that it's not the relationship that is going to bring you happiness. No matter how even good it might seem, there's still something missing. So some of us have to learn by going through 100 relationships. Some can learn by 1 or 2, even with jobs. You get to jobs, you start making the money that you want, and you're like, something is still missing. So it's like these outside things a lot of times have to reflect the inside, that hey, nothing that you do on the outside is going to bring that fulfillment. It all comes from inside. So we all have our different journeys of how long it takes to learn that.
Right. I have a question for y'all. Go ahead.
And I think, even when it comes to the timing of things, I think we have to honor the timing of things, because the way that time operates, it has no discrimination. Right. And so we have to show ourselves some grace and compassion in regards to our learning curve, because our story meets someone wherever they are. Right. And so we experience that even in our webinar that we just did, that all of our stories met these women where they were in their life, right? In the phases of their life. And so when it comes to, well, why didn't I learn this then? Or why am I just learning this now? Well, the question is, why not now? Right? Why not now?
This was the time for it.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask this question, but the thing is, we probably received the lesson, but we just didn't learn it back then. That wasn't the first time.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Perspective.
We weren't ready to receive it.
That's
at
a great
that
perspective.
at that time.
Yeah.
It's almost like, my husband, he was talking about a car, right? He's like, oh my gosh, love this car. He's like, I didn't even know they had those cars out. And I'm like, yep, they've been out for quite some time, right? That's because that's when it got your attention, right?
That's it.
It's not that these things did not exist, right?
Yes.
It's at that point in time, you were ready to receive it, or you were on the lookout for it, right? Which kind of rolls me into my next question, right? So we're talking about DOA, right? Yeah. So when we think about dead on arrival, I'm thinking about a crime scene. I'm thinking about walking up and you see this caution tape.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about seeing the police and maybe detective and the lights go off. All of those things, right? And we probably saw a white sheet, maybe even over a body.
Yeah.
What are the signs, Queen? What is the caution tape?
Let's go. One of my biggest ones. Oh God. And here's the thing. I went through this more than one time to your point of, I'm triggered right now. Calm down. A big one for me is, meeting someone who is not over their previous relationship.
Okay.
And it being very evident, right? Like,
you gotta laugh at
because it's like, Jesus, my damn. I mean, you knew this before. Anyway, but here's the funny thing. When I did realize that was a thing that contributed to a person's capacity being limited to receive me into their life, and what I had to offer them, I realized that after one relationship, and I said to myself, I said, you know what, I'm never going to get into another relationship, date a man who hasn't been single for at least a year. And I did the same thing, and that person also was not over their ex. Now that'll tell you a different story, of course, but all you have to do is look at the fruit that is bared, right? Like, just listen to a person. That's a big one for me. A person needs. Don't get me wrong. I think healing is continual, right? And sure, there are things that will come up years later that may trigger you and you have to deal with, right? But I'm talking about that you really still are holding on to the hurt and pain and the stories of that relationship that block you. It is a clear block from being able to receive love in your life and seeing this new person for all of who they are, instead of seeing, ooh, this look.
Right.
This is familiar.
On the side.
Right. Right.
That's big for us.
Good.
That was a good setup. Queen. That's a good setup.
Y'all saw where I was going with that.
That's why she's our actualization guide. She paints a
I would
picture.
say for me, a red flag in romantic relationships. And I'm gonna give y'all one for friendships too. But for romantic relationships is when I have to mother you. Yeah. And I grew up early on taking on the responsibilities of a parent within the home. So it's familiar to me, and it almost naturally comes about. And so I have to check myself and be like, hey, this is your man, not your son.
Yes.
Because the thing is, as a woman, when you have to mother a man, you kind of lose respect in a sense.
All respect.
And also you get into this power dynamic thing. So when I start to see that, where I have to push you and motivate you and tell you to go to school and get good grades, it's a no. Because all of that energy that I'm putting on you as a grown adult that's fully capable of taking control of your own life, I could be pouring into myself. So with that mothering role, not only am I mothering a grown man, but now I'm neglecting me. Because I got to take care of baby boy. And it's crazy because it will sneak up on you.
Oh yeah.
It's not like I'm dealing with a Pookie or a Ray Ray. I'm dealing with men making six figures that look like they got together, but they might be lacking something emotionally. They might be lacking something spiritually. You know, so and I'm taking all this time to try to pour into them and try to lift them up and drag them along and help them see the light. And it's like, this man is an adult. If they haven't got it to this point, it's not your job to be responsible for their healing, for their growth, for their evolution, for their ambition. All that power, all that focus needs to go back into yourself. Now, as far as friendships, red flag, when I'm giving more than I'm receiving. There needs to be balance in all relationships. There needs to be balance. So with the friendships, if I'm doing more, and I don't see you equally coming in, it's a no for me.
And I always call that the power of reciprocity.
Yes.
For me, I would say red flag is constantly following up with what you're going to say you're going to do. I understand, give the relationship some time to show itself, to mold itself in the beginning, right? But if you say you're going to do something, after a while, you know, Ayanna Van Zant talked about the power of responsibility, being able to respond and stand on your response. You know, you're able to respond. So if you're able to respond with that responsibility, I need to know that you're going to follow through with what you're going to say you're going to do, right? Because it goes back to that mothering, right? If you're not careful, you'll fall into that trap of, hey, you said you were going to do this. What's going on? Or why didn't you do this, right?
That's
and
big.
going into that, you know, that mother role or that, you know, kind of like authoritative role, thinking that we can fix or change, right? But if we do not allow that person to show you who they are in the beginning, just by that principle of following through and standing on your word in order for me to build that security, build that trust, right? There is a level of that part of in the beginning where I have to trust you. I have to trust your word.
Right.
But if you're repetitive in that,
Right.
and you said it goes back to, like, you know, if we checking our text, did you say you was going to respond? It's been 3 days. It's been 4 days. It's been 5 days. So you just ghosted me now. And it's more of even those little signs, right? Those caution, those things that you, when you approach that crime scene, it's the little details that sometimes we miss. But it's right in front of your face.
Yeah, it's always there.
Is it dead? Clearly got a white sheet over it. Can I revive it? Can I revive it? It's me. I can wake it up. I'm gonna put this on it. I'm gonna make it.
I'm gonna make it live.
I'm gonna make it. I can resuscitate it. Let's build out the paddles, right?
Yeah. I think for me, and oh my gosh, I could speak to each one of those points at any different point of my life. Like, those were all awesome. I think for me, when I think about it, it's truly their relationships with others.
That's good. That's really good.
It was their relationship with others, right? So, you know, they say don't listen to who people say they are. You're supposed to look at it. Like, where is the action? Where is the proof behind it? And I can recall this one relationship in particular. And when we connected, and I'm like, oh, you got kids? Oh, okay. All right. Why do I, have to ask, do you have kids, right? So it's like, okay, all right. So what's happening? What's going on? Oh, and the mothers. Okay. Okay. The mothers. Okay. How many mothers? 3. Okay. All right. Well, you know what? Things happen. I get it. It only takes one time, right? That does not mean, we making up these excuses and attempting to logicize, right? I got to use that word, logicize, right? We got to make it make sense to us. Yes. So just going through the process and just listening as to, okay, so bet it happens and you were younger and okay. So what are you doing to now pull them into the picture? How are you holding them accountable? Oh, well, this one give me a hard time. Well, that's another red flag. Okay. The court systems can get involved, and I get it. Not all, but what have you done? What are the steps that you've taken to establish these relationships?
Yeah. What you mean?
But right. But you may be paying the child support and and good guy, but it's like, and what, right? Yeah. These are your seeds. Yeah. But you got time to look real slick. You got time to be dressed to the T and all these other things. And I'm like, that money can go towards lawyer fees to help. So again, it's like caution tape, right? Yeah. It's like white sheet, because if you're not fighting for your seeds to that capacity, how do I feel like you're going to be able to, come to me and I have 3 daughters, right? So how is this the expectation that you're not even doing what you're supposed to do over there, but I can count on you to be there and to fight for what it is that we have? Yeah. No,
can't trust.
That was a DOA. That was DOA.
Yeah, trust, responsibility.
And even to that point is how people treat their friends, their family, and their children, people that they've known longer than you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's a big, let's say that's a big display of how they're eventually going to treat you as the years go on. Because everybody put on their best face and their representative when they first meet you. Yes. But give it about a good 6 months to a year, and you're going to start seeing the real them. But if you really want to see it, see how they interact with their friends. See how they interact with their children. See how they interact with their parents and their siblings. Because eventually that's going to be you.
Yes. Absolutely. And here's something that was very interesting. And even to that point, on the flip side of that, even though my husband was in a compromising situation where he was getting out of the situation, he was, separating from his wife. They were parting ways. The paper was already handed, and there were a couple of legal things that they needed to close out. That is actually the thing that caused me to continue to look and keep the possibility open that this is actually a good guy, right? Yeah. Because of what not only his friends were saying and the people, they admired him. Yes. Like they did not assign his circumstances to his character, right? It was, hey, he did everything he was supposed to do. He went to the counseling. He attempted to make it work, right? And even in the instance of them breaking up, the way he handled her was I've never heard him say negative and anything negative about his ex-wife. He was like, I'm not moving out of this house, even though I'm staying in the basement. I am not moving out of this house until we sell it. Yeah. And I was like, dang, this guy has character. He has integrity. And even when it was like, I'm cooking dinner for because she was pregnant with their youngest son, right? And when the separation was taking place, and he was like, I still want to make sure that all of the financials everything is settled before I part ways. And I was like, damn, I ain't never meet no dude. From the area where I'm from, if he ain't with you ain't get fucked with, right? Yeah. We not worried about no husbands. And thinking about my situation, my 3 daughters, how it was handled, he was like, nah, I'm not leaving the house. Y'all gonna have to go. Yeah. And here it is on the flip side, right? Yeah. I'm like, oh wow, I saw his interaction and how he was handling other people and what they had to say about him. Yeah.
To your point, that you said when you were talking about when you guys were talking about watching how they treat other people, how they speak about their experiences with people who've hurt them is big for me.
Yes, yes.
If you are a person that is, last episode, it's always somebody else's fault, or he was this, she was this, and you can't tell me anything you've learned about yourself. Right? And it can't be, I learned I love good. No.
I love too much. I'm too loyal. I'm way too loyal.
If you can't tell me your shit,
That's right. That's
a red flag.
That
for
is
me.
big.
I'm so into it. I be like, oh, you love too much, you get too much. Oh, you like boundaries, huh?
That boundary.
Yes. Yeah. You got to tell me that you're able to be self-aware and that you are growing. Like seriously. And it's so evident in the way that you speak, that you talk about your experiences.
But you know what? The funny thing is, I've talked to some people, nice, attractive men, and I remember one in particular. He was at the gym, and he was like, "Oh, I dated this newscaster. She was, a Leo. She blah blah blah. Y'all crazy blah. She did this. She did that." So I said, well, "What did you do?" And he looked shocked, like. What you mean? What did I do? What did you do in a relationship? It takes two to tango. If a relationship doesn't work out, it's on both of those people. I said, well, what did she tell me? Two things. What did you do that contributed to the relationship not working? And what lessons did you learn from it? And this man literally had to take like a good 30 minutes. I said, I'll be back.
Right. Not mine. Because that should have been top of mind for you.
Absolutely.
Right. And this man was in his 40s.
Yeah, no.
That should have been what part you played and how you can better yourself should have been top of mind.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you had said that. My husband actually asked me that once we decided to kind of move forward. He was like, okay, so, tell me a little. So I'm running down the list. I can cook, I can clean, I can go to church, I can drop it like it's hot. Like I can talk to your mama, I can go with you to a corporate event, I can go to a club, I'll fight on the street. Like, so I'm listening to all of them.
Everyone.
Right. I'm listening to everything. So him. So what's wrong with you? And this is what I said. I have a problem trusting. I need to work on my humility. I need, so I listed those things as well. And he was like, well, that he wasn't expecting that. It's because, again, I took the opportunity between my marriage and matter of fact, with each relationship, I actually reflected and say, Vaughn, that wasn't a good move. What could you have done differently? And what will you do differently next time? So when I came, to meet my husband, or once we connected, it was like, I know what it is that I have to work on, but I also know what it's going to take to ensure that you don't agitate these things that I'm currently working on,
Right. And when you talked about, when you gave that visualization of the scene, the crime scene, and one thing that I heard you talk about was, the both of you investigated one another.
Definitely did.
There was an investigation period.
Yes, it was.
And one of the things that, I talk about, when we're talking about relationships, we bypass dating. We
don't vet at all.
Dating. The root word of dating is get data. Ask your questions. Ask your questions, because when you approach that scene dead on upon arrival or dead on arrival, what is your response? Are you going to stay there? Like, you already see all the cautions. Like, what is your response? Are you just going to stay and just look and just, like you said, try to fix and revive? Or are you going to be like, I've seen this before. I've been through it before. I have no taste for it anymore. You see what I'm saying? So I think for us, it's important to really kind of like elevate others to really look at the beginning of your approach of relationships, going from one relationship to the next and approaching it in a way of, let me get my facts.
That's right.
Let me investigate.
Or is it even worth? Is it even worth investigating?
Right.
Or is it just blatant that this is DOA? Like everything. Why you gonna ask them stupid questions?
Because you already
know.
Right.
Because you want to sit there and convince yourself that it's not what it is that you truly see because you want it to work so bad.
Come on.
Because
we already made the person in our damn mind.
Right.
We already visualized.
We already got the house, the benefits, the kids.
And I also think it's
Counting
great
them
for you to be aware. Not counting the dollars. We're
Count them down.
going to count them dollars regardless. But I think it's essential that we're aware of our patterns in past relationships to detect, Is this triggering? Is this triggering my mothering wound? Am I sitting here being a life coach for this? Right. I can't say that word, but for this man,
that's true. Because my husband would be like, "You can't therapize me right now. Please don't therapize me. I'm not here for it. I need to know about you, Angie.
Right?
Okay, all of you.
We call it psychologize. We tell my husband, you can't. The kids were like, "Dad, you can't psychologize us right now."
But it's like, is this feeling familiar? Is this pulling on my old wounds and my old personality? Something I'm trying to transition from. And I mean, I think you only need a couple dates
to figure that out.
True. To figure out, like, is this the same old? Yeah. And a lot of times it'll feel comfortable.
Of course.
When you're transitioning to something new, it's going to be uncomfortable. But you'll be like, oh, well, this is what I need. Like, I know in my new relationship, like I told you, I end up mothering people, right? This man will tell me, like, hey, take some time, take care of yourself, focus on yourself. Me and you, we're together all the time. Hey, go. Right. I'm just right down the road. Right. We'll meet up in a day from now. Like, just something like that. And I'm like, that's actually what I needed, because I started falling into that old pattern of being overly consumed into that person.
How do we avoid that? How do we knowing what the patterns are? Because that's the first part, right? Yeah. We all agreed. We need to first be aware, what are our patterns? What is it that we're always seeing that we continue to put on blinders about and not realize that this is to our detriment, these moves? What is the next step? What is it that we can do?
I was going to say to you, I think you said it in the video that we put out. One of the things is, I think it would all serve us well to know our attachment styles.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's
the
big.
Attachment styles. Yeah. And when you talk about the mothering, you know, the part of being secure and not feeling alone, right? Kind of, you know, cuddling up when you are triggered, right? And you go into your closet or you go into your own isolation and you deal with your stuff internally, right? And it's on the other end, when you get into a relationship where it feels so good, you quickly attach to it because it's re-triggering what you did not have. Oh God, that's as a child. As a child, right? And so, you know, to your question, Queen, I believe that, you know, we just need, from what I just stated, asking those questions and also understanding how long we need to stay. Right? We need to stay in that. Because again, once you begin to know your patterns, once you begin to know your attraction and who you're attracting, if you continue to attract the same person, I think we said it in one of our videos, then that should be a sign and you need to act on it.
Go left.
Yeah. You need a detour.
Take this action immediately.
Right? Immediately. Yes. Don't stay too long. And sometimes we need our sisters to say that, right? Yeah. Because sometimes we get caught up.
Yes, we do.
We do. Yeah. Okay, we're not perfect. We said this journey is not easy, right? And that detachment period, it's rough for some people.
And I think that's rough for us. If you see yourself, again, the patterns, the cycles, if you know this is a constant cycle for you, you need to pull in someone else who is credible to help you gain a different perspective about possibly what is it that you're doing? What is it that is missing within you that is attracting you to these types of scenarios and situations? We really got to become vulnerable about it, because we don't pull people in until it's almost too late. You know, your heart, y'all been together 3, 4, 5 years and you don't know how to get out. Now you want to pull on your girlfriend and say, girl, what is going? You want to complain about it instead of getting ahead of it, right? Pull them in. I want you to take a look. This is what's going on. Can you be my eyes for me? Because sometimes I don't see correctly. Sometimes the way he smells, the way he looks, the way he talks, the way he touches, it just gets me kind of confused and befuddled, right? So sis, I need you to help me be grounded in this situation and hold me accountable
Yes, and I have 2 ways of becoming self-aware, and we ain't gonna like this one. So one is, what are people saying about you? Everything ain't a lie. Everything ain't for manipulation.
It's not.
You know, people told me, you bossy. You know, you think you my mama.
And you heard it over and over again.
Yes, and I'm like, that's not me. And I'm like, something has to be there, Jessica. So, but with that, we have to be careful, because we have to know the difference between truth and manipulation. But ask the people, the person you're in a relationship, what do they have to say about you? Your friends, what do they have to say about you? Your family, what do they have to say about you? Now take all the good and bad and really reflect on all those points. Secondly, we truly reflect those who we are in a relationship with. So a lot of things that we see about them that we don't like is usually within us, and that's how we're able to identify it.
Yep.
So you know how they say if you love something about someone, it's probably because it's within you.
Yeah.
If you hate something about someone, it's probably somewhere within you. And it might not be manifested in the same form, just like the narcissist and the codependent.
Yeah.
They all have the same root issue. So it's like you have to take a really clear look at yourself and not think that every voice outside of you is just a lie.
Because it's something you don't like to hear.
Exactly.
Right. I agree with that, though. I think we turn our ears off to criticism, right? And it's all about, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to take it? Are you going to just be mad at them and say that they're tripping? Or are you going to look to find the truths within it and say, how does it better me? That's how I can always kind of differentiate the information that I'm going to internalize. If what they are saying about me is going to make me a better individual, if that's going to make me a better friend, or more confident person, or more empathetic person, how can I take what it is that they said, maybe take the sting off of it and deal with the actual meat, right?
Yeah.
I agree. I think two things. To your point of using your girlfriends, we talked about it last episode. When you are identifying, being intentional about choosing your tribe, choosing the people who are in your circle, who you go to, understand all of us need somebody that's going to keep it real. Shout out to my one girlfriend. I have girlfriends, but one of my best friends, who has been my best friend for a long time, she has no cut cards, none. And don't get me wrong, sometimes she be saying stuff and I'm like, I'm gonna call you back. Right. Give me time to process. I mean, don't feel good. But I always appreciate. She is one person that I can always. One person I call and I'll be like, tell me if I'm tripping. I need you to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also, tell them what you struggle with. You said be vulnerable. I'm not saying tell everybody, but the people that you trust that are going to hold up a real mirror for you.
That's right.
Tell them, like, use them as an accountability partner. Tell them what you struggle with, so that and don't listen. This is a red flag for us. If we are hiding stuff from those people or keeping stories from them, right? If inside of us we're like, well, we're not gonna tell that to them because then they're gonna tell us, right? That's a flag for you.
Yeah.
When you feel that,
that's when you need to.
That's
when you need to. That's when you need to.
Yeah, like when you find yourself wanting to keep secrets or hold stuff in from those people who are supposed to be your mirrors or your accountability partners, like call them. Call them.
We're gonna have to talk about that one too. Do an episode on that, accountability partners, and how to choose healthy, right, accountability partners, because it's very, very important. And I believe a lot of us, we attempt to do this thing called life by ourselves. And this is one of the reasons why we came together, understanding the importance in, having not only, of course, sisterhood, but to have different perspectives, credentialing, because these queens, I'm just saying, y'all, don't let them pull out the papers on y'all, just saying. But to have, the village. We keep going back to the whole village concept and understanding who you can actually depend on, because we need it. We don't always see it. We don't always see it.
Yes, especially if we're like I wouldn't say head of our social group, but we're the person that everybody comes to.
Exactly.
It's like, who gonna check me?
Right.
And then you get a mentor. And then you get a mentor or a therapist, and they check you real good.
Trust. Yes, they do.
As they should. Pay us real good for that. Right.
So that's kind of what I had to see in my life, because in my associations, I tend to be the person that everybody comes to. But I get a mentor, and she just tell it to me like it is. I'm like, oh.
Absolutely.
I love those people.
We need that.
I know.
It hurts so good.
And even in my relationship, he's very honest. And he can be honest like that because he doesn't need me in any type of way. So there's no attachment of trying to please me, so he can hold on to me. So he can sit me down and say, hey, you was doing too much.
Or hey,
Right.
And even with him, he's the voice of reason in his family, so he has a therapist.
Yeah.
And his therapist kind of helps him to be more grounded and more self-aware. So you might have to hire people. You might have to, have therapists, mentors, wellness coaches, and people that are going to help you along and keep you accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a holistic thing.
Shameless plug. Each one of these guides are available for you.
check out our website.
We do have a go to our website, www.xcapade2expansion.com. You can get to all of us there, just saying, right? So great. We do have criteria. We do not accept all customers.
No,
let's be clear.
Right,
So,
right.
but anyway, this relationship DOA, I'm loving the discussion.
Yeah.
Now, y'all have a question? Because I have one more. No, y'all good?
Go ahead.
Actualization.
Go ahead.
So, at what point, once we realize that we are in the situation, because sometimes we don't know, right? We don't have that accountability partner, right? Sometimes we can't change it. We cross the yellow tape, we pulled off the white sheet, and we on top. We breathing. We giving CPR, right? Mouth to mouth. At what point do we say this is not going to work out? At what point should I realize that this is just really not gonna work out? Because let's be honest, people spend 10, 15, 20 years in relationships, right? And they're like, I've invested too much. They've been pumping at it. They've been, there. They've been there to support and to encourage and to pull. At what point do I say, it's enough? Like,
So the old me would have had to been dragged.
somebody had to
I would have been laying to the body, next to the body, trying to warm it up while it was stinking and decomposing, just holding on to it. But the new me would look at it and say, one, let me approach things from a space of non-attachment, because I don't own anybody, I don't own anything. I'm simply experiencing everyone and how they're showing up. Hey, when it's time for them to come into my life, they come in, and when it's time for them to go out, they flow out. So just being in the flow of life. And two, looking at it from a perspective of if it's not growing, if it's stagnant, if it's no longer mutually beneficial for you or that person. And I'm not talking about even, even in the sense where people are using people. You say, well, it's beneficial for that person. No, it's not. Because it's enabling that person versus empowering that person. So no longer mutually beneficial, stagnant, and there's no growth. That's when you know, okay, hey, thank you for the experience. It's time to move along.
When that was a great question. It really was, because I just started visualizing, if I am isolated on this island by myself, I don't trust anyone, then that means that it's going to start manifesting in my body, right? It's going to start messing with my sleep. It's going to start showing up in my dreams. I'm going to have nightmares, right? I'm going to have random outbursts. I'm going to project what I'm holding on inside onto others until others start telling me, why are you acting like this? Like, what you're doing is not cool. What you're doing is not healthy. And if you keep hearing it over and over again, right? And so it has to be to the point where enough is enough. I'm tired of being tired, right? Because I'm no longer myself. I don't even recognize myself anymore, especially if I don't trust you. With your question, if I don't have any accountability, or self-accountability, I am now experiencing this in my wholeness, right? My whole body, my soul, my spirit, my mind, everything begins to talk, right? And if I'm not listening, then I'm resisting.
Yes.
I'm resisting this. I'm resisting my body telling me, like, you have to get out of this like now, or it's going to be the detriment. You're going to end up in hospital, anxiety attacks, panic attacks, right? You know, outbursts, angry outbursts.
Hair falling out. People wonder why.
Slicing up tires and banging windows. And, you see what I'm saying? Like, yes, in relationships. Way out of character. You
Way
know?
out of character.
So
It's time to go.
when you said that, and if I don't have someone, or if I don't trust anyone with my vulnerability, then it's going to start showing up, starting from the inside, and then it's going to start.
Wow. I agree. I think we know. We always know.
Always.
We just try to ignore it, right?
Yes.
But deep down inside of us, right, we know because it manifests in our bodies. It manifests in how we show up in other relationships. It manifests at work, right? Like
absolutely.
in different spaces, it shows. And are you having the same arguments and the same conversations with the person? And how are they presenting themselves to you? And how are you guys presenting yourselves to each other when you're having these conversations? Some people are just resistant to change and growth. A lot of people are, right? A lot of people are on that self-growth journey, that self-discovery journey, right? That self-accountability, self-awareness. It's not an easy journey. And it's very, right? And a lot of people don't believe in compromise and sacrifice, right? And I think recognizing after you've had conversations with someone, you don't have to have too many conversations before you realize and see a person for who they are. And us being able to accept this is your capacity. And I'm not going to try anymore to get more out of you than what I see your capacity to be, because at that point, that's my problem, right? I'm self-sabotaging, right? I'm only hurting myself at that point. Yeah.
I think for me, it's when I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Just thinking about previous relationships and understanding enough is when I literally felt like I was dying in the relationship. And I think that's a part of that growth. That's the part of not being able to trust. That's the part of not being able to connect. I mean, I could just even think about it now, and I know I've healed from it, because when I think about it, it's sad, but it doesn't hurt. I don't cry about it, right? But I can, because of course our brain is this beautiful machine, and it's wired to, when we begin to remember or think about things, it associates a feeling that's attached to it. And just thinking about some of those things where it was lifeless, I started to take on the attributes of that lifeless relationship. You know? So real. Oh my gosh. Like just no growth, no excitement, no motivation, no drive, just lifeless.
You get out of the relationship and you don't even recognize yourself.
Don't even recognize yourself.
Who you are.
Right.
Oh God.
So dead on arrival.
You know what? It's funny because when you was talking about that, it made me think about a friendship that I had last year. And it only lasted maybe about 6 months, but we was tight. We was tight as me. But it's like I felt the shift. Like Tisa said, I felt the shift. I felt like something was telling me it's time. It's aspiring. And I noticed that the tension started getting crazy in the relationship, and it was like I feel like I can't be myself. Now I'm starting to feel like I'm walking on eggshells around you. Before, me and you was like this. Now I'm feeling weird around you. And something in me is telling me the season for this relationship is up. And it's like we want to think everything is a lifetime connection. But everything ain't a lifetime.
It's absolutely not.
And even when we talking about committed relationships, everything is not a lifetime connection. Something's coming to your life to teach you what you need to know, to give you what you need to get. And then once it's done, when the lesson is over, it's time to move to the next level. So the funny thing is, I was thinking, because I was a little sad about that ending, but had I maintained that relationship, because it happened to be with someone of the opposite sex, even though we were just friends, had I maintained that relationship, I would have never been fully open to the romantic relationship.
Yes. Oh, good point.
Because even though that's just your homie, even though that's just your homie,
that's a whole nother podcast.
If y'all always together and all, it's like you're not energetically open to even Yeah. So the funny thing is that ended in June. And I met who I'm with now in September.
See what I'm saying? You better get off them dead bodies. Right. A whole bunch of live people standing around watching you attempt to resuscitate that job, that relationship, that friendship. They like, we over here. You can come. We got you. And you worried about that thing that's dead.
Exactly. So when I reflect back upon the relationship, I'm like, I learned and grew so much. Yeah. Me and him we both learned and grew so much, and we had this brother sisterhood, and it was time. The expiration date had come. So thank you for the experience. I love it. I'm moving on to something that's for me in this time.
Expiration dates.
Ooh, we're gonna have to do another one. That's a whole nother episode. I think we gotta wrap it up at this point, y'all. I think we gotta wrap it up.
We are wrapping it up. Thank you for joining us, Xcapaders, for another lively discussion with Xcapade to Xpansion. Again, we are your guides to self-discovery. Catch us on our website. Our website has everything. Our intros, everything. Xcapade2Xpansion.com. Catch our next episode where we talk about
sex.
Okay.
Let's talk about sex.
Right in time for Valentine's Day. We might spice up your life.
Valentine's Day. So thank y'all so much for joining us. Again, follow us if you're not already following us. Okay, follow us now. Subscribe and do all of that good stuff. And we'll catch you again. Peace. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Xcapade to Expansion podcast. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe.